Well, look who's back. Me. Now that I'm part of TokenAE, I'm legally obligated to make new videos, and what that means is that new videos will actually come out. Not bad. All it took to get consistent videos out of me was a legally binding contract. Go figure. But now my standard sort of video has a new name. Gamevania! As you know, if you watch these videos, and if you don't, you should go watch the other ones, because, I mean, I don't make money or shit from this with 500 subs, so I don't know why I'm even fucking telling you. But these videos don't tend to be entirely reviews or essays, more like an exploration of the weird and interesting corners of games that get me all hot and bothered. So it's like a Metroidvania in video form, but without like the cool music or the, I mean, I guess my videos do kind of have the same development cycle as Silksong. Undoubtedly the same quality and critical acclaim too. Anyways, you've all waited long enough for some hot new AceBonanza slop. So let's get cooking on another game I grew up playing, which is probably why I'm so endlessly patient. This game made me patient. It's Yu-Gi-Oh! Forbidden Memories, the game where the AI cheats like it's going out of style. And this is a pretty universal experience with this game. If you go to pretty much any song from the soundtrack on YouTube, whether they're ones that play like during a duel or even on the menus and stuff like that, you're gonna find countless comments of people who remember being stuck against pretty much any duelist in the game from the tutorials onward for hours on end. Often, they would win sheerly due to dumb luck because of how much the computer cheats. And frankly, this game rocks. Now, it's probably kind of known that I'm a Yu-Gi-Oh! Fan since I was a child. I'm wearing the shirt. Yu-Gi! I have the Millennium Puzzle box that I keep my childhood deck in. I have a big dark magician. I have a statue of the best character of all time, Seto Kaiba. That's the wrong way. I've got the Millennium Puzzle. I have a bunch of childhood toys like Saggy the Dark Clown. Little Sun Skull. Gaia, the Dragon Champion, but I lost the dragon as a kid. But the Cursed Dragon used to roar. Marek Ishtar with dual disc that goes. That's pretty neat. Yugi and his head's excellent. It still spins around because it's really old. But above all else, you know I got the dual disc. They used to have a lot more pep 20 years ago. So naturally, I played a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh! Games growing up, one of them being the PS1's Yu-Gi-Oh! Forbidden Memories, a game made by Konami to torture children, but in a fun way. We're gonna crack into the gameplay side of things. Think of it less as having to strategize in like a duel of wits against your opponent, and more having to strategize in how to out-cheat your opponent, which, to be fair, is very in line with the Duel Monsters anime and manga around the Duel's Kingdom period. Actually, that's just kind of what Atem does. Spoilers for his name 20 plus years later. So there wasn't really like established Yu-Gi-Oh! Card game rules when this game was being made, and that definitely shows. We'll talk about that in a sec, but first off, the RNG. Right off the bat, this game throws some nasty RNG at you. Your starting deck, all the cards that you're given to play with right off the bat, is randomized. There are a few pools of cards that the deck will pull from, and you have like a set number of monsters with a certain amount of attack and a certain amount of defense and ranges in these random areas, and they all glow chunks. You also get a field spell, which can be totally useless, and either Dark Hole or Raigeki for a board clear. And you should probably restart until you get Raigeki, because Dark Hole destroys your cards too, but who am I to tell you how to play a PS1 Yu-Gi-Oh! Game in 2026? I'll tell you who I am. I'm the authority. That's why you're watching this. But yeah, in case you weren't a big Yugi head back in the day, it's worth noting that for a good while, Yu-Gi-Oh! Games weren't actually super accurate to any sort of official card game system, even when the card game did exist. Up until Battle City in the manga and anime, the rules were pretty fast and loose, with the source material not even being super set on how the game worked outside of very basic things like attack points and defense points. So I kind of get it, and it made for some very weird and interesting games, but Forbidden Memories goes the extra mile. It just discards like half the game completely. You don't tribute monsters, and you can actually fuse monsters right out of your hand without any other cards, and you'll actually have to, as that's the main mechanic for avoiding getting your ass blasted. But even then, I have to warn you, there's a high chance of a blasted ass in your vicinity. Several times per duel, in fact. Because this game loves cheating. Essentially, it's like dueling the actual Pharaoh from Yu-Gi-Oh, but every character is him in the fact that they can just draw whatever they want. So literally from nameless chumps like Villager 1 to Isis, wait, not the terror group, the character, the attractive lady, not the bad one. And they're all able to read your hand and draw whatever they want whenever they want. And it ain't great for you. Now, if you have experience with Yu-Gi-Oh games, you might be thinking, oh, can you not just like put in a password to get a card and you can get a bunch of overpowered cards like that? That's an astute question. You can input passwords in Forbidden Memories, but they cost the maximum amount of star chips you can earn in the game, which would take literally years of non-stop play, which I don't think anyone's ever done. And it all comes down to the Pocket Station. Yu-Gi-Oh games used to let you use passwords to get whatever cards you wanted for free. Not anymore. Now you need to have a Japanese exclusive peripheral that rips off the Dreamcast. What is going on? The Pocket Station was essentially Sony's take on the Dreamcast VMU, also known as the Virtual Memory Unit. It was a dandy little memory card. You could take it out and play all sorts of little mini games, and then you could plug it back in to your controller, and it would sometimes carry stuff over between them, like in Sonic Adventure and Power Stone and stuff like that. It was the coolest thing ever, so I think it makes sense that Sony wanted a piece of the Chow Adventure pie, so to speak. Anyways, in Japan, this thing was used to obtain all sorts of powerful and iconic cards. It worked through like infrared technology where you could point a remote control, like a TV remote or a Game Boy Color infrared or anything at it, the Pocket Station that is, and then it would shoot the laser in and the rays would like become cards. This is a very scientific description. There were also other methods like a lottery where you would put in passwords that you got from the magazine V-Jump, which was never a thing here. Even these would, putting in the password would just give you a chance. Yes, a chance. And that entirely depended on your Pocket Station's unique ID number. Even the game's peripheral media is rigged against you, which is, I think that's very fitting for Forbidden Memories. Then there was another mechanic called the Guardian Stars, where you pick one of two Guardian Stars when you summon a monster, and they're the planets of our solar system and the sun and Pluto, I think. And each one had an advantage and disadvantage to another one, like Pokemon types, because this system wasn't complicated enough with not following any established rules. I can never remember these type advantages because, it's a bit less comprehensive to have Saturn be strong against Uranus, don't laugh, and then weak to Jupiter compared to water beats fire. Fire beats grass. Grass beats water. It's a little more simple. But this is actually one area where the game's AI wasn't too nasty. Instead of, reading your cards and playing the best card ever, it would always pick the first Guardian Star. So you could write in your journal or write in your journal. I'm a fucking boomer. You could go on GameFAQs is boomer too. You could go on any website and see how it works, what beats what, and then you could plan and be like, oh, they're probably picking the first one. I'll pick the one that's advantageous against it. It's rare that this game offers you anything you can use to your own benefit, so this is actually a handy little feature. But in order to win these duels, you're going to need two monsters that are stronger than anything. They will give you the slightest chance of victory, but the most consistent slight chance compared to the garbage caca they give you in the game. These two monsters put everything else to shame, one of which you can make pretty early using some nasty fusion combos, and that is the twin-headed Thunder Dragon. You can make this through fusion, and it's a 2800 attack monster that will guard you against some nasty customers for a good portion of the game. The way fusion works means that you're going to need to pick a number of monsters out of your hand, and then you can pick one on the field too, but that doesn't matter. These monsters fuse sequentially, so if you pick 3 cards in a row, it'll do the first one, the second one will hit the first one, the third one will hit the second one, or whatever they turned into, making the order you pick of the utmost importance. What determines the kind of monster you get from these fusions is a bit complicated. It comes down to the monster type and attack points. There's a bunch of types like you could expect: dragon, rock. One of them is female. What's your favorite monster type? Mine's woman. Yeah, I'm kind of a feminist. My favorite monster type is female. Just saying. Anyway, this is all primarily from my experience and some peer-reviewed Yu-Gi-Oh! Research, as you should expect. To get our Lord and Savior Twin-Headed Thunder Dragon, you'll want to fuse a monster with 1600 attack points or more. Ooh. Hey guys, post-filming, mid-editing AceBonanza here. Just want to say I accidentally said a monster with 1600 attack when I should have said a dragon monster with 1600 attack. You can go ahead and friggin' razz me in the comments. I can take it. With any Thunder card or vice versa, so a Thunder card with 1600 attack or more with any dragon. There's a lot more dragons in this game than Thunder, I'm pretty sure, so probably want to do the first one. Or you can fuse two monsters together that'll make a dragon with over 1600 attack, and then fuse the Thunder with that. As long as you're fusing those two things in some way, then you'll get Twin-Headed Thunder Dragon. But to do these fusions in order to make the Twin-Headed Thunder Dragon, you're going to need a number of cards. And how do you get those cards? Grinding. Since most of the cards you start with are feces, you're going to need to grind like a damn soap shoe. You see, when you beat a character in the story, you unlock them in free duel, and you get a drop from them when you beat them. But I know what you're thinking. That sounds straightforward. Not in this game. Because grinding isn't as simple as just dueling. No. You see, there are different kinds of victory. There's power, which is just POW, and tech, which I assume is technique or technical. I don't know. Both POW and tech have ranks that go from D to S in this weird scale that I'll put right here. These are determined by a whole bunch of factors of how you play, with the best POW rank, S-POW, coming from defeating your opponent very quickly, within a few turns I think it is, and the best tech, S-Tech, coming from getting your opponent to run out of cards, things like that. The sort of victory you achieve determines what kind of card drops you get. S-POW gives you better monsters, and S-Tech gives you better spells and traps. So to get those materials for THTD, as I call him, we're very close. You'll want to duel Jono 2. This is Joey when he's an old-fashioned peasant, for the second time you duel him. As well as Isis, again, the character, Mai, things like that. Having some hot and ready twin headies will get you pretty far. Note that I said pretty far. Once you've somehow progressed far enough in the story to battle the mages, you'll be thrust back into the wiki wild world of free duel grinding. Because Twin-Headed Thunder Dragon, that damn noble steed, that fine creature, that wonderful little character, it can't carry you by itself anymore. It needs help. Specifically, once you've unlocked the iconic Yu-Gi-Oh! Character Meadow Mage, then you're golden, baby. Yeah, baby! Just battle him again and 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 again until you get Meteor B Dragon. The B stands for black. I just call him Meteor Dragon. I don't see race. The large lad has 3,500 attack points, and you have a 0.98% chance of getting him. Though, keep in mind that is specifically for a POW, S, or A victory. And I know 0.98% doesn't sound like a lot, but for this game, that was a bad voice crack. But for this game, that's pretty damn good, especially compared to everyone else who drops him. I have fond memories of my brother and I repeatedly dueling the Meadow Mage over one summer, over and over and over and over, and eventually getting 2 Meteor B Dragons. I don't have that kind of free time anymore, but if you do, grab a couple of those, keep your Tony Hawk's Thunder Dragon materials on lock, and pray to whatever god you believe in, because the game gets real nasty at the end. It's a pain in the fucking ass. I only got past these for the first time in my early 20s, despite playing this game since childhood, shortly after it released. And a huge part of that was luck, but gee whiz, did I feel like a king among kings after beating the game and getting a sneaky little password to use in the sequel, Duelist of the Roses. We'll get to that one day. That's also a very weird game. Now, when you're grinding for this kind of battle, there is a neat little feature in Free Duel where you can duel against the mysterious Duel Master K. What this is the evil hell AI using your exact deck, so it's like a mirror match. Why is this good? Because it shows you the psychotic strategies you can use that could only be thought up by this game's awful grok. You can see what hellspawn this vile computer worm would make with your cards, then use that against its AI brethren. Now buckle up, because we're gonna get fucking nerdy, because we're talking about the story. The main plot jumps back and forth between the modern era of the late 90s and the Egyptian pharaoh times. I once knew what years those were, but I'm now old and decrepit, so I can't remember like I once could. In the past, you play as Atem, who was, at this time, a nameless prince. His name wasn't revealed yet in the manga and anime. Back in the 90s, Yugi is in a trading card game tourney that isn't from the series. This is like an original story. I once went to a Yu-Gi-Oh! Card tournament only once in my whole life when I was a kid, and I fought someone whose dad was telling him what to do, and he won. I think I could have won. I could have gone pro. I could have made tons of money. I wouldn't have to do degrading shit like AceBonanza. The story is fine enough, and I think it's interesting as like an original take on the universe, but you have to keep in mind that Forbidden Memories released originally in Japan at the end of 1999. These are summer. YouTuber Janjo Zone, or Janjo Zone, I don't know, found in the game's data that the game began development at the beginning of 1998. I didn't watch the rest of his video because I didn't want to accidentally like copy any of the shit he said. But what I saw was great. You should go watch it. Anyway, so the game started development early 1998, and judging from the chapter release dates to the specific date provided in the video, the Duelist Kingdom arc had just begun in the manga when the game was being made. By the time of the game's launch in Japan, the Battle City arc was just about to begin. By the way, the Battle City arc, best tournament arc in Shonen. Don't come at me. It's true. Go watch it. Very good. Why is this interesting, you ask? Because Forbidden Memories features story ideas and characters that aren't actually even close to being in the manga and anime by years. One of the first characters you meet is Simon Muran. The first game he popped up in was the Game Boy game Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters, which came out a year prior to Forbidden Memories in December of 1998. He wouldn't appear in the manga for another 4 years. And he's not alone. There's the Ishizu, formerly known as Isis, who popped up ahead of her manga debut just a month after debuting in Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters 2 Dark Duel Stories, which it's the game before the North American game that was called Dark Duel Stories. Localization used to be a fucking mess. But there are several characters where this applies to them, where they appeared in this game years before they would be in the manga and anime. They were essentially conceived in these spin-off titles and then used in the actual canon story later. It feels like a fascinating first draft for the Millennium World arc, which is the final arc of the original Yu-Gi-Oh! Series, for those who don't know. This arc went into the origins of Atem and all the memories he lost from his time as a pharaoh, and heavily involved Bakura and all these priests and a bunch of stuff like that. Naturally, there are even characters who are completely original in this game that never appeared in the manga or anime, but also seem to have incredibly similar roles to characters that would appear alongside the characters that would actually appear later. Haitian is super similar to Akhenaten. Nightmare is like Zork in that they're both evil deities that Atem's got to deal with. Maybe I'm alone here, but I find it super interesting to see these early parallels to characters that would pop up like years later. But whether Takahashi went back and took these characters because he liked their designs and their characters and put them in the manga, or whether he created them for this knowing they'd be used later, I don't know. But it's very interesting to see this kind of foresight where there's these parallels to characters that wouldn't appear for nearly half a decade. That's a long time, especially in terms of weekly manga. If you're not a Yu-Gi-Oh! Stan, think of it like this. Imagine a Dragon Ball game came out years before the Majin Buu saga, and it featured Babidi, Majin Buu, and Dabura as the main villains, all while the Saiyan saga was being written. So nowhere close to the Buu saga, but the Buu saga characters appear. It's even crazier than Ho-Oh being in the Pokemon anime in the very first episode, a couple of years before Gold and Silver came out. It's just a very intriguing foresight to me. I also want to delve into the visuals for a sec. Beyond the crispy PS1 textures on the cards in the field and the settings and stuff, if you press square, so instead of pressing X when you attack them, press square. This triggers a transition into a 3D arena where you see your monster and their monster battle it out, and this shit blew my mind as a silly little millennial biscuit. For all the people born after the millennium watching this video, I should probably explain. It used to be a really big deal to see characters portrayed in 3D when they hadn't been before. This was when 3D was new and hot. Toy Story was like 4 years old. So the reaction was less, oh, it's 3D, and more, holy shit, I can see Mr. Mime in 3D. Sugoi desu ne. So being able to see all these surprisingly well-made models of these pretty stinky monsters that were never going to really be used in the actual card game is actually kind of badass. You know, you see these intricate 2D drawings from the early days of Duel Monsters translated into, well, less intricate, but still very charmingly chunky 3D models. It was a very big deal, despite being kind of silly to look at now. I remember being so mad as a little lad that I couldn't see the Dark Magician because he cost like 9 trillion star chips, because I wanted to see my favorite card in 3D so bad. You want proof it's my favorite card? The statue from before. I have a Dark Magician wall thing of versions of the card. I should put this on my Tinder. I wanted to see him in 3D so badly because he was my favorite card. Also, the internet was barely a thing at this point. So a small child couldn't just whip out their Coco Melon branded iPad or just see the Japanese version of the game. I couldn't do that either. This was a different time. You weren't live. You don't get it. You don't get it. And the music, hot diggity dog. This is one of the best soundtracks on the PlayStation 1. There are so many surreal songs that just create this simultaneously like eerie and relaxing environment, in addition to some of the funkiest songs you will ever hear being associated with a children's card game. Though the Free Duel song is incredible and gets a lot of traction, rightfully so, it's a great song, I want to point out Kaiba Tournament Final, which is the song I most associate with the character, and that's saying something because Kaiba's not only my favorite Yu-Gi-Oh character, he is one of my absolute favorite characters in anything ever. And this song just nails down how intense and powerful the guy is, especially about a children's trading card game. But yeah, go listen to the soundtrack sometime. The tracks are so varied and unique, and they're impossible to get out of your head. I've had them in my head since I was a kid, and I have a bunch of them on my gym playlist. As we approach the end of this topic, I know it sounds like I've been a little harsh on the game, but I really want to point out that for all the flaws and peculiar design choices, I think this is a very brilliant and, more importantly, fascinating game. Though there are tonally similar and almost equally odd sequels that I might talk about one day, Yu-Gi-Oh! As a franchise is just too huge now to ever make a game like this again. I really just can't imagine Konami deciding to like make a weird kind of RPG based on this franchise. Honestly, I don't see them making anything outside of, you know, these fairly straightforward duel simulators like Master Duel and Duel Links, or maybe like a pretty basic RPG like Yu-Gi-Oh! Rush Duel, Dawn of the Battle Royale, but even then, that was back in 2021, which is half a decade ago now, which makes my tummy hurt. When franchises like Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Pokemon go from these kind of like small, novel, scrappy games to titanic media franchises that dominate pop culture and rake in billions of dollars, they sort of have to lose the rough edges to become something more appeasing to everyone through the meat grinder of capitalism. While freaks like you and I, and I'm not saying that in a mean way, I'm saying that very endearingly. You're watching this video, which makes you a freak. I'm making this video, which makes me a huge freak. We're all freaks here in the AceBonanza commune. I accept all of you, unless you're evil and have hateful beliefs. Then get out of here. Fucking get out of here. So while freaks like you and I might like these strange and intriguing creations that come from these early days of now more marketable and streamlined franchises, it's obviously more financially viable to make things that are digestible and as widely appealing as possible. Making an insanely hard Yu-Gi-Oh! Game that has famous characters mixed in with wacky original ones alongside like a crazy, bizarre soundtrack, it's going to take a lot more time and money than making new DLC for Master Duels or a new area for Duel Links. And that's not a slight against either of those games. I played Duel Links like a damn fiend in like 2019 era. I even became the king of games once. Hold your applause. But microtransaction-laden free-to-play duel simulators are going to rake in swaths more De Niro for far less effort than a whole new RPG with several potentially off-putting or confusing aspects to it. Plus, there's the elephant in the room, which is that Yu-Gi-Oh! Is not the same franchise it was in the year 2000. From the incredibly heroic and unfortunate passing of series creator Kazuki Takahashi, to the fact that there have been a whopping 7, as of recording this, entirely different spin-off series that have since drastically changed the tone while introducing new characters and summoning mechanics and monsters. The series is simply different. What used to be a manga about a young boy and an ancient Egyptian spirit playing various games of life and death made by one guy is now a huge multimedia powerhouse that spans one of the biggest trading card games in the world, numerous ongoing video games, and frequent new series that take place in duel academies, far-off futures with card motorcycles, alternate dimensions with duel tainers, fast new dueling formats. Like, what series would you even base a game like this off of anymore? Do any of them have anything close to the cultural relevance that the original Yu-Gi-Oh! Had in the early 2000s? Does the original Yu-Gi-Oh! Still have that cultural relevance that it had 25 years ago? Can any new series ever of anything get close to that again now that monoculture has been brutally mutilated and murdered by our society? Are these questions getting a little heavy for a silly video about a PS1 game? Maybe. Unfortunately, this game is likely one of an extinct breed. That of the early oddity in the soon-to-be massive franchise. I would love to see it get at least some kind of port if they make another Yu-Gi-Oh! Early Days collection with the 3D games, or even some acknowledgement in ongoing games like Duel Links, like add Haitian. But until then, copies of Forbidden Memories actually aren't awfully priced on eBay, as is the creation of this video. Of course, the AceBonanza bump is gonna hit, and they're gonna soar through the roof. Otherwise, you could... Well, who's to say? Regardless of your method, I highly recommend playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Forbidden Memories in whatever way you can. It's unlike anything else out there other than its sequels or sister titles or whatever you want to call them, and it harkens back to an experimental and fluid time in the history of Yu-Gi-Oh! A time that has long since passed and will probably never be returned to. It also seems to have a pretty big speedrunning following. I see lots of YouTube content about this game, which is surprising because I never knew anyone else who played it in real life. So I think it's great, and I've been watching a lot of those and they're fantastic. It seems psychotic to me to speedrun this game because of the RNG, but Godspeed, you sick heroes. And so ends another AceBonanza classic, waxing nostalgic in the hellscape that is YouTube and the hellscape that is the modern world. May we all survive to see the next video, and may it come out faster than the last. Until we meet again, my silly little freaks, stay gold.